So, welcome to Jumbo Eyes and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a very short span of time within 30 minutes. The idea is very simple. We want you to cover your current affairs and we want you to cover them on a daily basis. But we don't want you to spend your entire day just reading the newspaper. Therefore, for your facility, we will complete a particular day's current affairs within 30 minutes. Now, just after watching this lecture won't be sufficient for you because just after watching it, you need to revise it as well. Because revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us along with this lecture, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram platform. The link to our Telegram platform is provided in the comment section below this video. All you have to do is just click on that link. It'll take you to our Telegram platform, and from there you can download the notes for this lecture and do the necessary revision. All right, let's start today's lecture. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we are going to cover today. So number one would be First Constitutional Amendment Act. The First Constitutional Amendment Act, which introduced ninth schedule to the Constitution, was done so as to introduce land reforms in the country. So we'll talk about this entire issue and a very important case in Supreme Court's history, that is Shankari Prasad versus Union of India. So we'll talk about this. Then recently, a Ministry of Health has launched India's first biomedical waste disposal plant. Okay, it's called SRJANAM Rig. So we'll talk about this biomedical waste disposal plant, SRJANAM Rig, and how it will basically reform how biomedical waste is disposed of in our country. Then ISRO has recently launched Shakti semiconductor chips. Now, these semiconductor chips have many applications in computers used in space, nuclear, and many other defense industries. So, what are these Shakti semiconductor chips? We'll talk about them. And in the end, we'll talk about oil spill in the Baltic Sea. Many Russian ships are roaming Baltic Sea and they carry crude oil. Now, chances are that these ships are very old, and chances are that if one of them is damaged, it might lead to spilling of oil tankers on the Baltic Sea, which would be a very dangerous situation for the entire region and the countries surrounding Baltic Sea. So, we'll talk about Baltic Sea and this situation. All right. So, these are the four topics that we will focus our attention on. Let's discuss them one by one, starting with First Constitutional Amendment Act, because this will revise your polity portion also. Now, the thing is that even before India got independence, our freedom fighters did talk about land reforms. The reason why they talked about land reforms was because the land ownership structure was such during the British rule that it was quite exploitative for the majority of people living in this country. Okay, there was zamindari system, there was other problems in the rural landscape of India. Therefore, even before independence, government of India thought, or sorry, not government of India, freedom fighters thought that land reforms are pertinent if India wants to really improve the situation of most of its population. Okay, so as soon as India got independence, the first thing or one of the first things that the new establishment, independent India's establishment, did was they undertook land reforms. Okay, now the thing is that these land reforms involved zamindari abolition and many other things. Zamindari abolition and many other things. We'll talk about them one by one. Okay, the problem was that in our constitution, land reforms and zamindari abolition was very difficult to perform. The thing is that in our constitution there was this right called Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause F, which gave right to property. Now, if you are going to conduct land reforms and snatch away the property of these big landed elites, these big landed elites would go to the Supreme Court and say that it is violation of their right to property, and the case would get stuck. Okay. Now, the thing is that to get around these cases, what government of India did was, or what the parliament did was, they enacted ninth schedule. of the Constitution. Any law which is included in the ninth schedule of the Constitution would not be challenged in any court of law. And Supreme Court cannot review whatever is mentioned in ninth schedule. Okay. So most of the land reform legislations were put in ninth schedule, and because ninth schedule was or basically anything that was mentioned in ninth schedule actually stopped Supreme Court or any other court of law to inquire into that legislation. Through this mechanism, they were able to conduct land reforms. Now, Shankari Prasad Deo was a zamindar from Kashipur, and he challenged this first Constitutional Amendment Act which brought in ninth schedule. And this famous case was known as Shankari Prasad versus Union of India. He said that the parliament does not have any right to conduct first Constitutional Amendment Act and introduce ninth schedule, because ninth schedule takes away the power of judicial review from Supreme Court. Now, this became a landmark case, and in this case, Supreme Court took the side of the government, not Shankari Prasad, and it upheld first Constitutional Amendment Act enabling land reforms. It was only after this whole controversy of 1951 that land reforms went in full flow. All right. So what happened? Land reforms were to be were to be done, but for land reforms to be done, they would be challenged by Article 19(1)(f), right to property. So first Constitutional Amendment Act introduced ninth schedule. All land reforms were put in ninth schedule so that courts cannot challenge it. Shankari Prasad Deo basically challenged this first Constitutional Amendment Act and ninth schedule and got defeated in Supreme Court. Now, what was all there in these land reforms? Okay, what were land reforms? So first thing under land reforms was zamindari abolition. Now you need to remember this. Look, land is a state subject in our constitution. That means only states have the right to create any law with respect to land. Okay, so when land reforms were done, it was basically different states bringing in laws to do land reforms. Okay, the only thing that parliament did for them was they introduced ninth schedule through Constitutional Amendment Act. So in many states of India, zamindari abolition was done. Okay, so different states had to pass their own zamindari abolition laws. Then land ceiling laws were also passed. Land ceiling laws basically put an upper limit to the amount of land one individual can own, so that one individual does not own maximum of the land in a state. Okay, land ceiling laws were enacted, and tenancy reforms. You know, many farmers basically they don't own land, but they take land on rent. They are tenants. Now these tenants were basically exploited by the landowners. So government brought in many tenancy reforms through which laws were in place that these landowners cannot exploit these tenants. Okay, so in total these three things were collectively known as land reforms, and to do them, first Constitutional Amendment Act was passed which introduced ninth schedule. Okay, this ninth schedule was challenged in Shankari Prasad versus Union of India, and Supreme Court sided with the Parliament. Okay, it challenged the first Constitutional Amendment Act that placed Zamindari Abolition Acts under ninth schedule to protect them from judicial review. Okay, Supreme Court upheld the amendment, ruling that Parliament had the power to amend the Constitution, including fundamental rights. Clear? Shankari Prasad said that Parliament does not have the power to amend the Constitution to basically block fundamental rights, right? Now, this judgment of Supreme Court, Shankari Prasad versus Union of India, was challenged, okay, in Golaknath case in 1967. And in Golaknath case, Supreme Court reversed its judgment of Shankari Prasad. It said that Parliament does not have the power or the right to amend fundamental rights. Parliament can amend anything in the Constitution except fundamental rights. That was said in Golaknath case. Now, this order was again challenged in 1973 in the landmark case called Keshav Nanda Bharati case. And in Keshav Nanda Bharati case, Supreme Court reversed its judgment of Golaknath case. It said that Parliament has the power to amend the fundamental rights. Parliament has the power to amend anything in the Constitution. But, and Keshav Nanda Bharati case added a but. The amendment cannot alter the basic structure of the constitution. So you can amend anything as long as you are not amending the basic structure of the constitution. And who will decide that basic structure? Supreme Court will decide from time to time. This is known as basic structure doctrine, and it was given in Kesav Nanda Bharti case in 1973. All right. So this is the background. These are the three important judgments that you need to know. Shankari Prasad, which gave full power to Parliament. Golaknath, which removed that power. Kesav Nanda, which gave that power back with a caveat that you cannot alter basic structure. All right. Okay. Let's move forward to second news item, which is SRJANAM Rig. So, Union Minister of Health Dr. Jitendra Singh today launched India's first indigenous automated biomedical waste treatment plant at AIIMS, New Delhi. The thing is, you need to know a bit of background to understand this news. The thing is, many hospitals in our country generate a lot of biomedical waste. Okay, blood, human waste. Okay, a lot of that is basically generated in the hospitals. Now, hospitals dump that waste and incinerate it. Incinerate means burns it, okay, to dispose of that waste. Now, that generates a lot of toxic fumes, and many other problems are created because of this. So, we needed a biomedical waste treatment plant, okay, so that no toxic fumes are generated and it is disposed of safely and properly. Okay. Now, earlier, some hospitals who were well off, they used to import these machines from abroad. Dr. Jitendra Singh announced that India has created its own machine, which will not incinerate but use proper methods of disposing of biomedical waste. Okay, and it is India's first indigenous automated biomedical waste treatment plant. It was introduced in AIIMS, New Delhi, and it has been named SRJANAM Rig. So, the automated biomedical waste treatment rig named SRJANAM was officially dedicated to the nation. It was developed by CSIR NIIST Institute in Thiruvananthapuram. Okay. CSIR, Center for Scientific and Industrial Research. It has many laboratories. NIIST in Thiruvananthapuram is one such laboratory, and it created this plant. Clear? Now, more on SRJANAM ring. So it is automated, eco-friendly biomedical waste treatment rig designed to disinfect pathogenic, okay, blood which is infected with various bacteria and viruses, medical waste without incineration. This is important. Earlier you used to burn it without incineration. Now this entire project is implemented by AIIMS Delhi in collaboration with CSIR, and CSIR is under which ministry? Ministry of Science and Technology. Okay, I'm so sorry. Dr. Singh is basically Minister of Science and Technology. Now, this biomedical waste plant does not use incineration technology. So, what technology does it uses? It uses a specialized antimicrobial process to neutralize pathogens, which is an improvement over incineration technology to dispose of biomedical waste. Okay, so this biomedical waste treatment plant actually basically disposes of infected blood also. Okay, now some special features. Through incineration, toxic gases were released. Now they won't be released. Okay, toxic gases like dioxins and furans, they won't be released now. Okay, this treatment plant has high capacity, can treat 400 kg of waste per day, including 10 kg of degradable medical waste. It is eco-friendly. Plus, it will reduce biomedical waste generation. Now, this was a big problem. Central Pollution Control Board said that India generates 743 tons per day of biomedical waste. Okay, and some of that waste is not disposed of properly. Now, with this SRJANAM rig, it will be. Okay, all right. Now, let's move forward to third news item, which is Shakti semiconductor chips. So, IIT Madras and ISRO have developed have led the way in developing and successfully booting an Atmanirbhar aerospace quality Shakti based semiconductor chips. Now, what are semiconductor chips? Basically, we are surrounded by electronics, and all these electronic items run on microprocessors. These microprocessors are microchips, okay, which are made up of semiconductors. That is why we call them semiconductor chips. Now, there are some applications, okay, some electronics that are used in aerospace, defense, and many other sensitive fields. They require special semiconductors or special microprocessors. Now, earlier India had to import these microprocessors. ISRO and IIT Madras have created their own microprocessor chips for these aerospace, defense applications. Okay, these are called Shakti based semiconductor chips. Now, this project was backed by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and these Shakti semiconductor chips were created under a mission of Government of India called Digital India RISCV initiative. Now, what is this RISCV? Basically, RISCV is a mechanism, architecture of creating chips. Okay, it is an open source instruction set architecture for designing custom microprocessors. So basically, under this DIRV mission, Government of India was to create many chips that are based on this RISV-5 technology, RISC-V technology. Okay, so under DIRV, many chips would be created. They would be based on this technology. Okay, and what are the applications of Shakti microprocessor? Well, it is high reliability, security needs of space, defense, computing industries. It is based on RISC, the open source instruction set architecture. Now, what is this? It is an open source instruction set architecture for designing. Basically, if you do not know the technicals of it, if you do not understand this technical language, just remember that RISC 5 or V is a platform for designing custom microprocessors or custom microchips. And Shakti is designed under this technology. All right. Now, what is DIRV program? I just told you. It aims to promote indigenous development of microprocessors based products that offer best in class security and visibility for users adopting this technology. It was launched in April 2022 by Ministry of Electronics. What are the benefits? Well, our import dependency would get reduced for high quality microprocessor chips. Okay. This will focus on new technologies like IoT, Internet of Things, AI, sensors, advanced computing. And these microprocessors support 5G, 6G, AI automation technologies. Okay. So these are the benefits. And we'll quickly move on to the last news item, which is oil spill in Baltic Sea. Now, what is in the news? As aging and deficient tankers in Russian shadow fleet traffic the shallow waters of Baltic Sea, a major oil spill disaster looms, experts say. First of all, you need to know what Russian shadow fleet is. Now, if you have been following our lectures for quite some time, you know we have talked about Russian shadow fleet. You see, USA and Western countries have imposed sanctions on Russia for selling crude oil. So, Russian ships selling crude oil come under Western sanctions. To avoid those sanctions, Russia created a special fleet of unknown ships. These ships cannot be tracked. They are old ships, they cannot be tracked and they do not carry Russian flag. And Russia was using these ships to export crude oil. It was its attempt of using these unknown ships to avoid sanctions. This is known as Russian shadow fleet, which Russia was using to export crude oil to avoid these sanctions. Okay. Now these are old ships and these ships can be damaged any day. If they are damaged in a sea, then it would lead to a massive natural disaster because when natural oil spills on the sea, it spreads around. And when it spreads around, it catches fire also. So you see fire burning over water. Okay. Security analysts say that Russia is operating a large shadow fleet of hundreds of vessels seeking to dodge the sanctions of Western nations after Russia-Ukraine war. This is not important for us. What is important for us is we need to know about Baltic Sea because Baltic Sea questions might be asked. You know, prelims examination, location based, geography based questions are asked. So you need to know about Baltic Sea. Okay, so about Baltic Sea, it is semi-closed inland sea in northern Europe that separates the Scandinavian peninsula. So this Finland, Sweden, Norway, this is Scandinavian peninsula from continental Europe. It is connected to the Atlantic Ocean. on this side is the Atlantic Ocean through narrow straits of Denmark. Okay. Now, the thing is that Baltic Sea, the salinity of Baltic Sea is very low. Why? Because a lot of rivers, more than 250 rivers, drain into this sea. Okay, they bring their fresh water into this sea. So its salinity got reduced. The biggest river is Neva River that dumps all its fresh water in Baltic Sea. You need to know this fact also. Some extra information. Well, the surrounding countries, as you can see on this map, Denmark, Germany, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Russia, Finland, Sweden. Salinity is low. The largest island on the sea is island of Gotland, which is under the control of Sweden. Okay. And the neighboring seas, see on this map, this area is North Sea, White Sea on this area, and Atlantic Ocean is also there. So White Sea and North Sea are there. All right. And that would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. It would add more value if you revise this lecture as well. So please do not forget to do that. On that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.